Hey, friends, it's Peggy Hall back with you to add some positive value to your life and some encouragement if you are having difficulty making decisions. Now, some people are a little bit more impetuous, and others, I would say, maybe are a little more, they take a little bit more time. So maybe they're a little more cautious in their decision making. And most of us kind of fall somewhere in the middle. It seems like sometimes even simple decisions can paralyze us, like what should I order in a restaurant, or what should I wear today? And those kinds of decisions can give us an indication that we are dealing with possibly some underlying anxiety in our life, thinking that these decisions we make are somehow going to magically have an impact on the rest of our day or even the rest of our life. So many people are struggling with making decisions easily, without guilt, without second guessing themselves. And I want to share with you 5 tips that I've used in my life that have helped me make decisions. Let me say from the get-go, there are decisions today that I regret that I made in the past, but that's because in the past I didn't know then what I know today. And ideally, we are learning and growing from our choices, our actions, our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings in our life, the circumstances that we find ourselves in, the people that we surround ourselves with. So I have spoken on this channel before about guilt and regret and getting unstuck from those emotions. So rest assured, there is content about that specifically if you are dealing and struggling in that area. I would say that many of us have difficulty making decisions. Number one, we don't trust ourselves because we've made these decisions in the past that we wish that we had done differently. Or there are other people that are influencing our decisions, and that can really keep us stuck because, of course, most of us don't want to let anyone down or disappoint anyone. So that can also lead to kind of stuck decision making. And I think for most of us, we just don't want to regret the decision that we make. And that can lead to that kind of paralysis. So let's dive into the 5 tips that have helped me in my life. And I hope that they will help you as well. I've got little teddy bear here wanting to go in and come out. So hopefully we'll get through this without any further interruptions. So the as I talked about, it can be hard for some of us to make decisions because we have, and here's the tip number 1, we need to sort out our values. What is it that is important to us? And often the indecision can come from competing values. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you want to simplify and declutter your life, which I think is a great idea. I actually have a class on that topic, and it's something that I have been doing, frequently throughout my life because I do like to lighten the load, so to speak. And let me just take care of Teddy 1 second here. There's my current decision. Do I let her stay in the office or do I let her go out? So we have little decisions that we make throughout the day. Let's say that you are simplifying and decluttering your life and you come across an item and you're trying to decide, should I keep this or should I let it go? And there you have a couple of competing values. Number 1, you have the value of this item. Maybe there's a sentimental value. It was given to you or you inherited it. And you're thinking, oh, it's difficult for me to give this away because I don't want to let that person down, or maybe my memory is going to be going with it. But then you have a value of wanting to live a simple, less cluttered, more streamlined life. So we have competing values that make our decisions harder. Let's say that you're not dealing with somewhat of a easier decision like that and something that's more life-changing, such as, do I quit my job and find another one? Do I move from where I am and go seek to live in a different place? Do I continue this relationship or do I break it off? These are, in some cases, the decisions that really can be paralyzing for people. But when you look at your values first, what it is you value in your life, that can help you make these decisions more easily and without regretting it down the line. So let's say that you are a person who values adventure. You are a go-getter. You love to have change in your life. You feel alive and challenged when there's something new. Well, that would kind of tip the scale toward having a new job, moving to a different place, because you like that, you seek that out. But if you value stability, comfort, having a routine and feeling that you don't want to, have to face change and deal with that, that would tip your decision making more to let me stay where I am in the same job, in the same location, maybe even with the same people in my life. So take some time. That's tip number one, to really rank your values. What is important to you? And again, you have competing values often, which is what leads to the indecision. And those values can change over life. Perhaps in your earlier years, you really craved adventure and you loved just trying new things and moving and having a new job. And you felt fantastic about having those challenges. Maybe as time went on, you started to value more of the comforts of the familiarity. And that's okay. Just acknowledge where you are and what you are valuing. Now, I do also want to acknowledge that often our decision making is influenced by another person. So perhaps you're the breadwinner in your family, or maybe you're the one that is really behind the move, and your significant other, your spouse, your family is like, we don't want to move. So yes, you do need to consider other people often in your decision making. I had a situation some time ago, several years ago, and we were changing a few things in our home, and I had a table that was very sentimental to me. And it was a table and chairs that I had actually refinished with my dad, and it was more of a vintage piece, and it didn't really go with our new decor. And my husband didn't have the same sentimental attachment, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's fine. Just put it in the garage sale. We can donate it to someone." And I'm like, that was my blood, sweat, and tears into that table. And, my dad worked on it with me, and, he's no longer around. So may he rest in peace. It's like, I wanted to hang on to that table, but it was a little rickety. It was stained. It didn't really go with our decor any longer. And I decided that I would let that table go, but I did keep one of the chairs, and that chair still is a sentimental piece for me, and it can bring back all of the good memories of that table without me needing to keep the table. So in that case, I did consider somebody else in the decision-making process. But number two, so number one, rank your values. And for me at that time, I valued having a more streamlined situation in my home. I didn't want to keep that table in the garage or in storage. So I had enjoyed it. I had used it. And it turns out that my neighbor down the street absolutely loved it and wanted it. So I knew that it was going to a good home. So my value at that time is I valued something, a new, fresh look, and I could still hold on to the sentimental feelings without having to hold on to the table. When we are considering how this affects others, that definitely can affect our decision making. There are times, and I'm sure if you are married or you're in a relationship where you need to compromise with this person, you might feel sometimes like, well, I'm always acquiescing to what the other person wants. So there could be a situation where you trade off deciding what you're going to do. And in that way, one person doesn't get all of the decision-making power over the other. Now, another way of doing this is to have boundaries or categories where someone will have the final word. So in our home, we've sort of divided it up where things that have to do like with the garage and cars and fixing things, and that's pretty much my husband's area. And if he really wants to do something a certain way in the garage, and I'm a little iffy, and he's going to make that decision, that's going to be his decision because I agreed to that. And then when it comes to inside our home, if there needs to be a tiebreaker in terms of, I don't know, decor or furniture placement or switching out a lamp or whatever, I get the last word, because otherwise you just are having these decisions be sidetracked or having decisions be made when there is some sort of hurt feelings going on because, well, you got to do that last time. So talk about those things in advance if your decision making affects someone else. So that's number two, is think about the others, but also think about not always acquiescing. If it is something that's important to you, trading off or having areas where one person would really have the last word. So the third tip, and this is what has helped me immensely, I would say that this is probably the most important tip for me, and that is the complete opposite of considering someone else's feelings. I know this might sound a little callous, but can you just for a moment consider that this decision is going to affect you and no one else. And the reason why I like to create that sort of artificial scenario, because our decisions do affect others, but the reason why I like to do it as an exercise is this. It helps me get down to the truth of where I am in this decision. So if I'm deciding to cut my hair or to whatever it is in my life, and if I think, okay, this is not going to affect anyone else, this is just for me and me alone, what would I want to do in this situation? Let's say you're trying to determine whether or not you want to keep this job. Well, you're probably thinking about how much money you bring in. Can you get a different job? Are you under a lot of pressure at work? Is this leading you to be in a very stressed situation when you come home? So yes, these things do impact other people. But if just for a moment you were to say to yourself that your decision is yours alone and it affects no one else, and you're not going to worry about what anyone else thinks about how you cut your hair or what car you drive or what jewelry you have on or clothing you have on, because these are some of the daily decisions we do, what you order at a restaurant. I've heard from so many women and men that I've helped over the years in my coaching programs regarding weight loss and healthy eating and feeling better, that they were impacted and influenced by someone else at a restaurant, and they didn't actually order what they wanted to order because they thought it was almost like an unconscious thought that, oh, they're going to think I'm unhealthy or I shouldn't order dessert. And they were influenced, their decision, even in these everyday things, that was influenced by somebody else. So imagine you have the ability to make these decisions that are not going to impact anyone. What would you do? This is going to nudge you a little closer to, hey, I'm going to make this decision for myself. And then when you look at that and you're at the truth of where you want to be, you probably are going to feel more confident, self-assured, and ready to have these conversations with others where your decision may impact them. So that has been a game changer for me. I'm looking at my notes here. Now, number 4, and this one is also very powerful. Let's just say, and let's imagine in your decision making, you're going to stay in this job or you're going to leave the job. You're going to move or you're going to stay. You're going to sell your car or you're going to keep your car. Any of these choices, you are going to order the lasagna or you're going to order the salad. You're going to keep this sentimental item or you're going to donate it. Whatever the decision is, I'd like you to consider, again, this is sort of an artificial scenario, but it can help you get more clear on your decision making. Consider this. Both choices are equally valid. Both choices will have positive outcomes. So if we can go on the conclusion that both of these choices are great, which one would you do? I know that might sound strange, but that will also help you get closer to the truth of what you want to do, because you're thinking, hey, you know what? Keeping that table is going to be good and giving it away is going to be good. So where am I here? And I was like, well, I'm just going to give it away because this woman wants it. And I've enjoyed it for, a number of years. It's kind of worn out and I'm on to something different. And I was okay with that. Now, number 5 ties right into this. And again, I keep saying each one is the most important, but this is almost like your safety net for decision making. It's very powerful and it is a practice, meaning it's probably something that will be new for you and you need to practice it. You need to practice it with your thoughts, with your emotions. And it is simply this: decide in advance to like your decision. What does that even mean? It means once you've made the decision, you are going to focus on all of the reasons that you made that decision. And you are simply not going to entertain this second guessing yourself. Do all of the second guessing before you make the decision. But once you make the decision, cut yourself some slack. Otherwise, you get into the spin cycle of self-punishment. I've spoken on this channel before about self-punishment. It's a very difficult and troubling and distressing place to be, where you personally don't feel that you, and maybe it's not even a conscious acknowledgement, but somehow deep within, you don't even believe that you're worthy of living a life without all the second guessing and the regrets and the being so hard on yourself and the rumination and, oh, I should have, I could have, I would have. Let that go. I'm giving you permission to step into freedom. One of my sayings, which I picked up somewhere along the way, is this: the path is smooth. Why are you throwing rocks? Why are you making your path more difficult than it needs to be? You can second guess your decisions before you make them. Once you make that decision, you are going to direct your thoughts and your emotions and your energy toward all of the good reasons why you made that decision. Let's say that you left your job and you found a new one, or maybe you're unemployed, but you are going to focus on all of those reasons that you wanted to leave your job. And you're not going to entertain all of the what ifs, because frankly, we don't know the path not taken. We tend to romanticize it in terms of, oh, it would have been so much better if you don't know if it would have been better. You are harming yourself and punishing yourself for reasons that we can get into in another video, but I want you to be aware of that and to practice liking your decisions. So what I do is I make a list, and I've had lots of life-changing decisions in the last several years, as many of us have. And I literally make a list of the pros and cons, but I don't go by which list is longer, because again, I have values and I'm going to rank those values. Some people value being independent, maybe even isolated, to use that word, and they like to be on their own. They don't want to be bothered or disturbed. And there are others that are very social. They need to have people around them all the time. Those are two different values, two different personalities. And there may be pros and cons on your list that would suit one or the other personality. I'm just using those as examples. I think you know what I'm talking about. So putting the pros and cons is not a matter of just counting them up and say, well, there are 10 reasons why I should stay and 20 reasons why I should go. No, you're going to look at those depending on your values. And you're going to choose what brings you peace of mind. Now, if you're in the spin cycle and your emotions are running and your feelings are going and your thoughts are run away, it's going to be very difficult for you to tame that down to actually feel what is going to bring me peace. I've used an example on this channel before, several years ago, after my parents were both deceased, and I, along with a sibling, had inherited the family home, and we were trying to determine whether to keep it, whether to rent it, whether to sell it. And we went through all different variations. I mean, we tried them all on for size, and these decisions did impact others, not just me. But I did go through this process of, if it was just me making the decision, what would I do? And it turns out what would I do if it was only me, and the decision that brought me peace, it was the same decision. And the decision also aligned with my values. I'm not saying it was easy. I'm not saying there weren't some tears shed, but overall, this is how I go with my decision making. Most importantly is I decide to like the decision. So it's actually the decision after the decision is the most important. And I would look at the list of all those reasons why I decided to take this one route. And it does bring me peace of mind knowing that that was the right thing for me. I hope this is helpful for you, friends. Decision making, second guessing, ruminating, which means turning something over in your mind again and again and again, is actually a distraction. It is a distraction from you living your life fully. You know what you want. And I'm sure that you do, once you take the time, journaling, talking to a friend, talking out loud, going for a walk, taking time to pray, to think about what it is that you want out of life, how these decisions are going to impact who you want to be, and does this fit your future? That's another video I have. I will link it for you at the end of this one, and that helps you visualize where your life is going, and it will help you make these decisions that are aligned with your values. As my husband likes to say, he steps forward in faith because God will work together all things for the good of those who are called according to his purpose. So you can have confidence in that. The road not taken is not necessarily the better one. We think it might be only because we're standing here. For heaven's sakes, also please cut yourself some slack for previous decisions you made that you regretted. it's likely that you didn't know then what you know now, and use that decision going forward so that it actually becomes a lesson and a stepping stone rather than kind of a boulder around your ankle, not letting you move forward in life. There's a big, beautiful life out there, friends. I want you to live it fully, enjoy it fully, and I'll be back with you with another encouraging video next week. Thanks for being on board.